Woo, woo, big dog.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Coffee Hour. My name is Paul Abernathy, your host. Thanks for joining me here live on the show, Coffee Hour at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. No matter where you're at, it's still 8 a.m. Eastern Time here. And thanks for taking the time out of your day to get your day started, have your coffee going, and get you moving and talk about all things electrical. Maybe you got something going on you want to discuss. Maybe you have an issue on your job site. You want to have an arbiter. You want somebody to settle an argument. Maybe you just want to join us, have some coffee, get your day started. Maybe you're on the road and you're streaming it. Don't watch it, listen to it as you're going down the road. Who knows, whatever your flavor, we thank you for being here. All right, so we are still in wiring methods this week. And so today, as you saw in the title, I was able to successfully add the title. Sometimes I forget, but it's talking about MC cable, metal-clad cable. So we're going to be talking about that today. Very general, practical application, talking about the NEC, all that stuff about MC cable. One of the probably the most versatile wiring methods out there. But there are some things that people don't know about metal-clad cable. Just because it's metal, people have some assumptions on it. So we'll talk about that today. Answer any questions you may have about metal-clad cable. Maybe you don't have any questions at all. Maybe you just install it and you really don't care. Brings me to another point. I am seeing stuff on social media where people are struggling enough with an install and getting it code compliant to now the same electricians are commenting on images like they're a freaking expert in the industries. Example, over on Facebook, there was a post about two pieces of wire, stranded or solid. And the question was, which one carries more current? So if you're an electrician, it literally doesn't matter. You're sitting there going, well, if it's 14 gauge stranded and 14 gauge solid, as far as the code's concerned, it carries the same amount of current. But there are so many people that want to get into the weeds, right? They start posting comments like, well, there's skin effect. Hey, I got news for you from a wiring cable guy. Skin effect is negligible in 60 hertz systems. You're an electrician. It's an electrician forum. You're not an engineer. You're not trying to be a scientist, okay? People focus on the stupidest stuff and they go down this rabbit hole. Look, a 12 gauge stranded, same amount of current carrying capacity as far as the NEC is concerned as a 12 gauge solid. Same with the 14, same with the 12, same with the 10, same amount of current as far as the National Electrical Code is concerned. Now, if you want to go to Chapter 9, Table 8 and look at the resistance, you'll see that one has a different resistance than other, whether it's a multi-stranded, like a 7-strand versus a single strand. You will see slight differences in DC resistance. Doesn't mean a hill of squat from an electrician standpoint. I think most of the electricians out there on this social media better learn how to do a code compliant install before they start worrying about whether or not a piece of wire, whether it's stranded or solid, can carry more current because it has a few more ohms of resistance, or I should say, not even ohms, fractions of ohms. Okay. But at the end of the day, if you go into some of these Facebook pages, these dudes will argue with you until they're blue in the face. Rather than learn, they're arguing with. Same thing over on TikTok. Same on all these people. All of a sudden are experts at things like wire and current and capacity and all that, but they don't know squat about the code. And it kind of makes you go, But that's the nature of social media. Next, I also noticed on social media that, for example, they were jumping. Oh, and I got to make sure I mute this. Sorry about that, folks. I saw they were jumping on Angry Sparky about the fact that he's posting some products that he gets sent for free. Why in the world would you jump on a guy who's doing videos for you for free, showing products that he's using in his videos? It's not like the guy is talking electrical and trying to sell you a widget that has nothing to do with electrical, right? And they jump all over him. The hate I see in these comments is that people post. I'm sitting there going, boy, you people, some of you have no life at all. You can't wait to just jump on a guy who all he's doing is promoting a product that he's using in a video, and he makes pennies on the damn thing. So anyway, I find it hilarious, and that is my problem with social media. And that's my commentary on that today. Hey, we want to do some shout outs today, let you know all the folks that are here and welcome you here. Frank the Great, thank you here. Also, I got to read something for you folks about the contest, last quarter's contest. We have people who still have not sent their information into winner at fasttracksystem.com, and you're not going to get anything. We're not going to go to our old emails. We're not going to go look at the info at Electra. We're not going to look at any of those. We only work with the new email winner. If you don't send your information, you're not going to get squat. Okay. I'm just saying, it is what it is. So what's Skyattle? What's up? Good morning. Glad to have you here. Jason's in the house. Good morning. Glad to have you here. Paul's in the house. Good morning. Glad to have you here. Let's get past my post. David, he's thinking about the mamas and the papas the Monday morning. I feel you, my friend. You're also dating ourselves there, David, as well. So what's up, Rob? Glad to have you here. Hoss, my neighbor right down the street here in Richmond. Welcome. Douglas, glad to have you here, my friend. Welcome to the show. Manny, good morning. Welcome. Talking 330 today. A little bit of MC cable, metal-clad cable. Okay. Good morning, Santana. Glad to have you here, my friend. Welcome. What else we got? Christopher's in the house. Good morning, Christopher. Good morning, Adam. All is well with me and my family. We cannot complain. It is what it is. Another day. We woke up and we're breathing. So that's always a good day. Having a little bit of struggles with this diabetes, but we'll get it straight. What's up, Jonathan? Good morning. Glad to have you here. Brandon's in the house down in Houston. Glad to have you with us, Brandon, as always. Ryan's boat is in the house. Ryan, thank you, my friend, for joining us. Let's see. Sven, is that how I say it? And I still pronounce my name Paul. Paul. Hello, Paul. Hello, Sven. Welcome. Red Dog's in the house.
Woo, 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 woo.
Good morning,
Big
Red
dog.
Let's see here. Peter, I got some of the names that are in here today. Please stay tuned because I got to tell you about your winnings and what you need to do because some of you have not done that. What's up, Rob? Rob says, for any reason, an engineer will call out the wire 10 and smaller to be solid. Engineers can call out anything they want. The funny part about stranded is the code says when you get to 8 and larger that it needs to be stranded because it pulls better in a raceway. If it gets smaller than that, solid stranded, it literally doesn't matter. A 14 gauge is the same amount of current that the NEC says. Now, people say, yeah, but the question is about the total amount of current. How can you even answer that question? Because one, it didn't give the size of the conductor in comparison to solid. And secondly, just because stranded may have an overall more surface area, whatever, if you go to the NEC, you'll see resistance values are different, but it's not significant difference. So again, that's why designers and professionals don't even worry about that. If we need amps, we go to amps. We go 310, 16, that's it. So to have a Facebook forum and somebody post it and have it be 1,000 comments and people talking shit like skin effect tells me they don't even understand what skin effect is. Now I'll give them a little lesson on skin effect, but until you start getting up to 400 hertz, it ain't going to make a difference. So if you're doing one of those type of systems, then you got to take some stuff into consideration. Building wire, these are all electricians on this forum. You should not even be mentioning skin effect out of your mouth. They're only doing it to make them seem smart, but then as they add more comments, they look stupid. I'm just saying. But anyway, that's what you got over on social media. Fast tube is gone. Oh, okay. Well, I can't bring it back. If it's gone, it's gone. Sorry about that. What's up, Bill? Welcome. Glad to have you here. Larry, glad to have you here, Larry. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Let's see here. Let's go to Fast Tracks Tube real quick because he says it's gone over on the tube. Let's see. Click on the coffee hour link. Yeah, let's see here. Yeah, it looks, nope, looks like it's working to me. Okay, so I don't know. Anyway, okay. So again, let me know who you are, where you are in the comments. Again, maybe you saw that comments over on, what's up, Charles? Maybe you saw the comments over on our, I don't think it's not on our Facebook page. It's some other page that I commented on. But again, I just urge people, don't comment in social media if you've got nothing that you can add to the conversation because it just makes you look silly. That type of thing. And as far as an electrician is concerned, I don't know how many comments I get about people asking me. I can tell you that 99%, I'm a realist. I teach you the code. I can teach you parallel circuits and series circuits. I can teach you voltage drop. I can teach you other things in the NEC. I can teach you the conductor's ampacity, adjustments, corrections. All those things are the important stuff. But people worry about things like skin effect as an electrician. No, worry more about other important issues. Okay. Even voltage drop, for example, is not a requirement of the NEC unless it's sensitive electronic equipment and it has its own voltage drop parameters, or it is fire pump scenarios and it has its own values, not the 3 and 5% we're familiar with the informational notes in 210, 215, 230. Those requirements are voluntary. Might be good choices, but they are voluntary. Okay. Unless an engineer specifies it or something like that. And then, of course, you follow the engineer, that type of scenario. I mean, they're the ones that are going to be held responsible for something anyway. But when people start talking this other stuff like skin effect, corona effect, and all this, that's code words for if an electrician's doing that in a normal form, that's code words for they don't know what the hell they're talking about, but they want to sound big. Hey, by the way, visit Fast Track's Tube. It's a video platform. Check it out. Yeah, it's the place to go to get good, reliable videos, and you won't get that bullshit. I'm just saying. All right. Today we're going to talk a little bit about, let us know in the comments again where you are, where you're from. No poll today. Because it's Monday. I didn't feel like doing a poll. We're going to talk MC cable. We're going to go through this pretty quick. We do have some pictures, some things I will show you from a presentation that I did for Encore Wire. So I'll take you over here to the lesson. So this is a presentation that I did, for Encore. Again, I like to break things when I'm teaching folks, customers or clients. I like to break things down into whether it's novice, normal, hard, very hard, or immensely intense, that type of thing. Okay, so this again, we're talking about, I would say it's intermediate. Yeah, I mean, it's for people that aren't familiar with, and oh, by the way, we aren't NASDAQ Wire anymore because now we're owned by Prismium, so it's a much bigger company. I didn't update the slide. Okay, you know what I'm saying? But let's see here. Brandon wants to already bogart the topic and take it away from MC Cable already. We're not even 13 minutes in, and he's like, "Dude, I have a question. I don't care about your MC crap. I don't care about nothing else. I need my question answered." So he says, "Paul, question: if a load center is being upgraded, does the meter, can, and service disconnect have to be added if no disconnect was there in the beginning?" All right, so different questions there. The question is, do you have to add the disconnect there if you're doing this meter, can, and service disconnect, that type of thing? So it says, if a load center is being upgraded, does the meter, can, and service disconnect have to be added if no disconnect was there? Okay. So if you're doing a total service change, total remodel, chances are most of jurisdictions at this point are going to make you come up to code. Okay. Emergency disconnect requirement is a retroactive requirement. If you're changing a service, then you have to put emergency disconnect on it if it's a residential application. So you got to work close with your jurisdiction. But at the end of the day, if there is a disconnect somewhere, okay, so if you're upgrading the panel, then maybe the disconnect's outside. The way you say it's a meter and disconnect, and you're doing inside. If you're doing a change out, a simple 200 for 200, 150 for 150, you're doing a simple change out, then check with your jurisdiction. Nothing I can govern that, and the NEC is not going to govern that. The only thing the NEC is going to say is, if you do a new service, and at that point, and it's not for emergency situations where you're just replacing from the service point down because of a storm or damage or something like that, then that wouldn't kick in any of the requirements. But if it is literally a service change, then your jurisdiction may kick in the requirements. So you might have to put SPDs in, right? Surge protected devices per 230.67, I believe. Don't hold me to that, but I remember. And then you've got the requirements for the emergency disconnect. I'm assuming you have one, okay? And that type of scenario, okay? Now, if the meter outside's 200 and there is a emergency disconnect, or is there a service disconnect that can serve as emergency disconnects already outside, and you're just doing a panel inside, so it's a remote distribution panel inside, no main lug only, that type of thing, then you may get away, if it's the same amps, you maybe get away with the swap, just a whatever for whatever, 100 for 100, 200 for 200, and get away that way. Even if it's got a main breaker, that could be a supplementary that might be just used as a disconnect because you have protection outside. Again, have to know more about your install, but really that's a question you need to talk with your local AHJ, because there are some retroactive requirements, and that would be for the emergency disconnect and for the SPD. Go read those. If those do not apply, then your jurisdiction may let you do a like for like. A lot of the jurisdictions that I run into, uh, well, if there's no service disconnect at all and you do a change, I'm sure that regardless of what the NEC says, I am sure that once you touch those legacy systems, and I had an old house like that years ago, that the panel was just a bunch of fuses, Edison-based fuses, and it was inside of a bathroom, believe it or not. Came through the house, service conductors running through the house, and as long as I left it alone, nobody had a problem with it. But the moment I started touching it, the local AHJ had rules that required me to bring it up to code. So again, it's not really something the NEC can govern, except for the things I told you about, but you need to talk with your local inspector and see what they say. Brandon, that's the best I can help you with that. What's up, Pedro? What's up, Cray Cray? I see you in here. Good morning, Jay. Glad to have you here. All right, that's me. Look how nice I look right there in my suit, in my little CMECP pin right there, okay? Some of the code committees that I serve on, y'all don't give a crap about that. All right, so first thing I want to do is I like to go over to the NEC. And we're going to be talking metal-clad cable, MC cable. This article covers the use, installation, construction specifications, which is part 3, by the way. And then part 2 is the construction and installation and use is just part 1. What's up, Edgar? Good morning. And we're just talking MC today. Listing, all MC cable has to be listed as a manufacturer of MC. Now, the listing for this is UL 1569, in case you folks didn't know. You've heard me talk about it enough. UL 1569 is the listing for metal-clad cable. Now, interesting enough, y'all all should know that metal-clad cable comes in many flavors. You've got the interlock, which is what we all typically use. Basically, it's a strip of metal that gets bent around like a mandrelling device that actually curls a beak, so that the one, as it goes in and it goes over, the conductors run through it, and the metal is a big reel that wraps around it, and it gets formed around the conductors as the conductors get pulled through this thing. So it literally makes it, as the bundle of wires plex together actually feeds through this like a tunnel, and then it has this big reel of aluminum or steel wire that actually feeds off of it. And there's a mandrel and a device with a bird's beak that actually bends it and forms it around the conductors, because that's interlocked. Then you also have smooth version, which is basically an extrusion. It is basically can be used as an equipment ground, because y'all know that interlocked cannot be used as an equipment ground on normal MC, just everyday MC that you folks use. But you have the smooth, which kind of looks like, for lack of a better explanation, it kind of will look like EMT. It'll kind of look like a MI, whatever. It's just a continuous tube in that type of scenario. So that is a smooth MC. And then, of course, they make a corrugated or welded MC, which is basically like an interlock, but each convolution is welded together. Okay, so it is called continuous weld, or a corrugated type of MC. So that's your main types of MC: interlocked, smooth, and corrugated, or continuous weld. Now, on-core wire, for example, Prismium, we focus on interlock because that is probably 90% of the market, right? But we also, as Prismium side, we also make a corrugated version. But obviously the lion's share of the work that's done today, and what's up, Petey, is the everyday interlocked MC that you folks work with all day long. Okay. So all of that, by the way, has to be listed. Right. So even the fittings, the connectors. So this is where I get people that ask me all the time questions about use of anti-short bushings, right? They say, well, I use them anyway. Well, you can do that if you want, but they're not evaluated that way. They're not evaluated with anti-short bushings on MC. So the fittings that have to be listed for use with MC are evaluated. What's up, Yusel? Are evaluated so that there isn't a need for an anti-short bushing. The way the fitting is actually designed. Now, if it makes you sleep better at night, that's fine. I don't care if you use an anti-short bushing on MC cable. If it makes you feel better, you do you. What's up, John? Glad to have you here. You do you. Oh, by the way, let me do this real quick while we're talking about this. I need to mention something to all of the, what's up, David? The winners of the last quarter. Some of you have not sent your information in, so I want to get this on the record in case you come back and watch the replay real quick. Let me go on and knock these out really quickly, if you don't mind, folks, because I want to make sure people get their goodies. On the NFC cards, okay, these were the cards that you can program to whatever you want. David Scott, you have still not sent your information to winner at fasttracksystem.com. Charles Sprut, S-P-R-U-Y-T, you have not sent your information either. Again, just send your mailing address and what you won, which is the NFC card, to winner, W-I-N-N-E-R, at fasttracksystem.com. As far as the conductor length cards, I have already sent out yours, David, so you don't have to worry about it. But Christopher MDE and Terrence Grace, y'all have not sent your information to winner. If you send it to any other email address, I'm not going to get it for this contest. That's why we set the new one up. So you have to send it to winner. Now, if you don't want it, that's okay too. Don't send anything. That's fine. Peter Labita, you won a knife, but I haven't gotten your information. Rob Thompson and Rob Nickman, you've already got yours. It should be in the mail to you, so don't worry. But Peter Labita, I have not gotten your mailing address information. As far as Ohms coins, David Bueno, I have not gotten your mailing address. It doesn't matter what other email you might send it to. It has to come to winner, W-I-N-N-E-R, at fasttracksystem.com. That's where you send your mailing address and everything there. And let me know your full name, who you are, that type of thing. Okay. Christopher, you also have not, MDE, you have not sent yours either. And Frank DeGreat, you have not sent your information to winner at fasttracksystem.com as well. And that's for your Ohms coin. Also, guys, when you send in your information about your Ohms coin, you got to let me know whether you want the master electrician one or the journeyman electrician one. Okay. Got to let me know. Otherwise, I don't know which one you want. The voltage drop card. Marlon Lewis Sr., you have not sent me your mailing address to winner at fasttracksystem.com. Poppy 420. I don't see you in here today, but Poppy 420, you need to send your mailing address to winner at fasttracksystem.com. Ultimate Coin. Cray, you've gotten yours. David Giron, I've sent yours. Marlon Lewis Sr., you have not sent your mailing address. It doesn't matter if you've sent it to other addresses. It's got to come to the winner address. Okay. Next is Trade Hog. All you out there that have Trade Hog or got your Trade Hog. Rob Nickman, JPB, and Seattle, you've got to send me information. I need to know the email you want to use and the username you want to use and the password you want to use. Okay. Okay, that type of thing. Yeah, we're having a little bit of a hiccup with this, Manny, with that template. It won't fit on the full thing, so I'm having to modify the daggone thing. But I'm gonna get it modified, and I'm gonna cut a piece of it off, and then I'll let you know when we're ready for that. The 2023 enhanced courses. Red Dog, you won the enhanced course, and Marlon Lewis Sr., you won the enhanced course. Have to let us know what your username is over on fasttracksystem.com so that we can put that into your account if you already have an account. If you don't have an account, you need to set one up. Minimalist wallets. Manny, yours are gone out. Van Man, I have nothing for you, so you need to send me your address, Van Man, over, and you need to send that to me, and you need to let me know which minimalist wallet you want. Master, Journeyman, there's a bunch of different designs. Let me know what you want. Beto B, also have not gotten your information at winner@fasttracksystem.com. Okay. The 2023 flashcards, Frank DeGreat, you won that. You got to let me know what account you have on fasttracksystem.com. So you got to send me what your username is, what your account is, and I will drop that into your account. Paul Montoya, you've got yours. And Van Man, you as well. Okay. Let's see here. 2023 grounding and bonding courses. We've got Jonathan set up and Nickman. Y'all should have that dropped into your folder, so you should be good to go. Good luck on your studies. And then coasters. The coasters giveaway. Red Dog, Robert Rail, Usal. I saw you in here, Usal. You and Angel Santos. None of you have sent us your mailing address at winner, WINNER, at fasttracksystem.com. I can't send you anything if you don't send me your mailing address. Okay. All right. Just wanted to cover all that. If you missed it, go back and watch it during a replay. So I need to get on with the lesson. Okay. So, but anyway, that's what we got going on. What's up, Thomas? Glad to have you here. All right. So that's the listing requirement. Okay. Use is permitted. Where can you use? Where can you use the MC cable? Okay. Well, remember, this is talking general MC right now. Okay. It's not being specific to interlocked. It's not being specific to smooth or even corrugated or continuous weld. Okay. We see continuous weld used a lot in hazardous location applications where interlock wouldn't be used. But at the end of the day, we need to know that when we see this general requirement right here, use is permitted, it's very general right now. It's not talking about any one specific type. Okay. All right. Now, type MC cables shall be permitted as following for services, feeders, and brand circuits. Okay. I see people using MC cable for service applications all the time. The one big caveat here is MC cable. Okay. You ready for this? People seem to not understand this, so I'm gonna let you know. MC cable is a dry location product. It is not designed to be installed in a wet location inherently if you just have the armor. Okay, even though the conductors inside of it may be rated for a wet location, the product listing itself is not going to lend itself to be in a damp or even a wet location. Okay, it's a dry location product. Now, you can get MC cable with a PVC jacket extruded over it. Basically, it's just basically like you just, enveloped it in chocolate, if you will. God, that's a better analogy from a diabetic, right? Embellished it in chocolate, put this coating on it, and then it picks up additional ratings to be installed in a damp or wet location, okay? But the regular interlocked armor cannot be in a wet location or a damp location. Now, that is not the same for the smooth continuous welding or the smooth version, the extrusion version. That's different, and it has other allowances. We're just talking in general, okay, applications. If you're going to use the everyday workhorse that you use every day of the week, okay, the interlock, the 90% of what you folks are going to work with out there, that PVC jacketing material is the only thing that makes that, with the conjunction of the conductors inside being wet location rated, with that covering that's put on it, that makes it a wet or damp location product. But it has to have that covering, okay? All right. All right, so you've got used for service feeders. It can be used for power lighting, control, and signaling. As you see, we make an MC cable that has 0 to 10 volt conductors in it as well. That is one of my patents, by the way. Many people use it, but it is originally one of my patents. And patents are only as good as you want to defend them, right? So if you don't defend them, then it is what it is. But available in all those applications. It's good for indoors and outdoors. Yes, it is good for outdoors with the caveats, right? That you have to, for example, have the coating on it. Okay. Well, we'll see when you'd have the other allowances for like the smooth and that type of thing. But in general, MC cable can be used indoors and outdoors. Just remember that this people read this wrong and they say, oh, MC outdoors, just regular MC. No, it can be used outdoors, but there's a caveat. It has to have the covering on it if it's interlocked, for example. So again, you got to understand how to read these things. Exposed or concealed, I can use MC cable in the wall. I can use MC cable exposed on the wall, but again, not we're subject to physical damage, but I can use it on the wall. I can use it above a suspended ceiling. I can even use it in an environmental airspace that's being acting like a plenum. I can use it in there without any additional ratings. Okay, it doesn't have to be plenum rated to use MC in environmental airspace. Okay, that type of thing. What's up, Angel Santos? I just mentioned you a minute ago, Angel. You won a coaster last quarter, but you have not sent me your mailing address at winner, WINNER, at fasttracksystem.com. So if you want to get your coaster, you got to send me your mailing address and your name and let me know what you won. Okay. All right. So anyway, there. The next is to be direct buried where identified for such. So again, if it's got direct burial written on it or deburr written on it, then it's rated to be direct buried. I can tell you PVC jacketed MC will, in most all cases, have the markings on it for it to be direct buried. In cable tray were identified for use, so it has to have that marking on the side that says for CT use. That just means that it went through some extra testing to be able to have like a horizontal flame test, that type of thing. So it meets that rule. It's 1685. It's a UL standard for flame propagation and all this kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? In a raceway, a lot of people still question, oh, you can't put NM cable in a raceway. Oh, you can't put MC cable in a raceway. You most certainly can put it in a raceway. Now, you may be doing it for physical damage protection because MC cable is not a product, even though it can be aluminum or steel, your choice, it's still not rated for severe physical damage. Okay, so it may look tough, it may appear because they say armor, but it is not. You'll see that in a second, right? I'm doing good, Angel. Thanks for joining us. All right, so next, aerial cable on a messenger. Can I hang MC from a messenger from building to building? Absolutely, you can. Of course, you got rules you got to follow for messengers as well. But at the end of the day, absolutely, I can. In hazardous classified locations where specifically permitted by other articles in the code. So, can I use MC cable? Yes. In a hazardous location, yeah, with limited application. Depends on the class and division. But you have 500, 501, 502, 503, for example, that deals in hazardous classified locations. And of course, you have other locations like commercial garages, both minor and major, that may give the allowance of use of MC cable. The deal with that is you have to watch and see because in those hazard classified locations, it may call for a specific type of MC. It might call for HLMC or something that denotes it that it's been evaluated for use in a hazardous location. But at the end of the day, those specific articles, like it says here, other articles in the code will have certain sections that may permit the use of MC cable, but it may be restricted to certain types. For example, it might only allow the continuous corrugated, okay, kind of a welded type. It's not the same as interlocked. Interlocked is just connected by some interlocking metal, whereas the corrugated welded, continuous welded, is actually welded, or even the smooth. So you got to read the specific articles, especially in the hazardous locations, to see what type of MC is allowed, that type of thing. But it's perfectly allowed if that specific article allows the application. 10, it says in dry locations and embedded in plaster finish on brick or other masonry except in damp or wet locations. So the question we get from people all the time is, can MC cable be embedded in plaster finish on brick or other masonry? Yes, as long as the brick or masonry itself is not in a wet location or subject to those types of conditions, okay? Then it's perfectly fine. And we'll see some other caveats in a minute where the use is not permitted kick in. But yeah, so dry location inherently, you can use MC wherever you want to dry location. That's the product is rated for that. But it's also allowed to be in certain things like plaster finish embedded in that, as long as where you're doing it is not a damp or wet location, because that plaster is going to absorb moisture. Moisture is going to get into the plaster. The brick and masonry is going to hold that moisture. Okay, that type of thing. So don't want that. Next, it says 11. And you see this right here where it says damp. That was my public input, only from a wiring cable perspective. Nothing in the standard UL 1569 talks about damp, but it does talk about wet. And if it's wet, damp is just a lesser restriction. It is anything but dry, right? So you have the same issues. So wanted to make it clear that if you're going to use metal-clad cable, and again, one of the most popular wiring methods in the world, if you're going to use metal-clad cable in a wet or damp location, it's got to be constructed a little different, okay? So let's look at it. The first one, and this is going to show you the difference in the different types of wiring methods, right? I mean, the different types of MC. Okay, it says, in a damp or wet location where the corrosive resistant jacket is provided over. Okay, so when it comes to these products, it's saying, okay, if it's a damp or wet location and you have a corrosive resistant jacket that's provided over the metallic covering, okay, so it has to have a corrosive resistant covering, which, by the way, PVC material is, okay, and notice the and here, and this is an important part to always talk about to people, the power of the word and. If it had said or any of the following, then you would just run down the list and say, I'll pick whichever one I want. It says and. So it has to have a protective coating on these types of MCs, and it has to have any of the following, right? Now, the first one says, okay, a metallic covering that is impervious to moisture. Well, the smooth type of MC would be impervious to moisture. It's an extrusion process. Okay, it would be fine. It's also a smooth, this also qualifies as an equipment grounding conductor, believe it or not. Okay, so again, at the end of the day, that's an example of metallic covering. It is impervious to moisture. Okay, still got to have this corrosion resistive jacket if you want to use it in these locations. Okay, or it could have a jacket resistant to moisture is provided under the metallic covering. So you could have a outside metal MC, right? And then underneath it, you could have a jacket as well, right? And so that means that the outer protective covering is on it, and then you would have an interior jacket resistant to moisture provided under the metal. So that would typically be a binder, let's say, that wraps around the internal conductors. It would have to be, in that case, resistant to moisture. Most of the stuff that we put around our conductors inside of an MC, the binding, whether it's paper, polymeric, it is not resistant to moisture. Okay, so how do we get around that? Well, we get around that with the third option here. That is this one. We see the insulated conductors under the metallic covering is listed for use in wet locations. So this is why you see a PVC jacketed MC product and the conductors inside of it are wet location rated, right? So because it's wet location rated and it has that impervious covering on it, now it can be used in the damp and a wet location. Paul says you're allowed to install MC cable with batwing clips to drop ceiling hanger wires, not if they're designed to support the ceiling. You have to have your own separate requirement for that, right? And so, Paul, where we would see that, if you want to go review that, is going to be at 300.11 right here. So this is where you're going to look, Paul, if you want to review that, securing and supporting, okay? And cable assemblies, that type of thing. It says wiring systems installed above a suspended ceiling, which sounds like what you're doing with your batwing application, right? So here it says support wires that do not provide secure support shall not be used as a sole support. Support wires and associated fitting that provide secure support and that are installed in addition to the ceiling grid support wires shall be permitted as the sole support. The independent support wires are used. They shall be secured at both ends. Means you connect them at both ends, not one of those trapeze type crap that I see people do. It has to be secured at both ends. Okay. Here it says the cable and raceways shall not be supported by the ceiling grid itself. Now, when you get into this, if it's a fire rated assembly, or 9 times out of 10, we're not dealing with a fire rated drop ceiling, which again, the fire rated drop ceiling typically has extra weight on it and it's evaluated. And some of those manufacturers may give some guidance and say certain things that can be supported by their support wires. But in general, let's talk about the non-fire rated assembly. Wires located within a cavity of a non-fire rated floor or ceiling or roof ceiling assembly shall not be secured to or supported by the ceiling assembly, including the ceiling support wires. There you go, Paul, right there. Okay. And just to say the same thing here for the fire rated assembly, it says exactly the same thing right here. Not secured to or supported by the ceiling assembly, including the ceiling support wires. Okay. So if you're running MC, which is germane to our topic, if you're running them in there, you're going to run your own wires, not the ones that are designed to support the ceiling. Okay. That type of thing. So now the only exception to that, there's an exception. It says a ceiling system shall be permitted to support wiring and equipment that have been enlisted as part of the fire rated assembly. So if you contact the manufacturer and it is a fire rated assembly, for example, and you ask them, will your support wires not only hold the added weight because the tiles are thicker, they have a fire resistive rating, if they will support the weight of cables, the manufacturer will tell you whether they evaluated the additional weight or not. Okay. And you have the same thing down here for non-fire. So you may reach out to that grid manufacturer, not the installer. Don't make that mistake because the installer is just an installer. He's getting paid 9 to 5 or 8 to 4, whatever it is. You need to reach out to the manufacturer of the grid and see whether or not it supports that. Why? Because to use this exception, there is a high probability that your AHJ, when they see all this, is going to want some type of documentation from this, okay? Because it says manufacturer's instructions. So that's where you're going to reach out. But in general, absolutely not, okay? Does that make sense? Thank you for the question, Paul. Appreciate it. That allows us to, and it was very germane. Very good. It was germane to the topic. So that's good. All right. So let's get back in here. Okay. So there's all the things. Now, last one is 12. 12 said, let's see here, where a single conductor cables are used, and people say, what do you mean single conductor cables? There's MC cable that's made out there, especially a lot of them, for example, in the 2196, the fire type of fire 2-hour rating, they will actually make an MC with a single conductor in there, and it gets wired very similar like you would do with an MI cable, very close proximity. It's very unique in how you'd run it. But it is, they do make a single conductor MC out there. Okay. And if it says, if you're using a single conductor type, all phase conductors and were used, the grounded conductor, okay, neutral, okay, shall be grouped together to minimize induced voltage on the sheathing. Running them in close proximity, just like you would do with a single conductor MI. Now, they do make MI with multiple conductors in there as well, that type of thing. So, okay. Is there a part that says it must be connected at 2 locations? Absolutely. We just read it, AJ. Guys, let me go back again for this. We just read that. Okay. Right here. This is where independent supports are being used. That's what you're running, independent supports. They shall be secured at both ends. Okay. Secured at both ends. One at the ceiling or whatever the supporting structure is, and the other end could be to the grid. It's just in addition to any other wires that may be run, for example, that are to support the ceiling grid structure. These are your own independent wires, but they have to be taut. They have to be connected at both ends. no trapeze, no swinging. Does that answer your question, AJ? Just wanted to make sure. I'm just teasing you, AJ. I will go back. I will go wherever we need to go to answer a question. Absolutely. Remember, guys, you got to have thick skin. I love to tease people because I get so much crap on social media that I've come to just be snarky. Y'all know that I'll answer your questions. So just, all right. So so that's the requirement. Again, close proximity, so we don't get no magnetic effect. And obviously this can be magnified if you're taking it through a raceway entry into an enclosure that is a ferrous metal, then you can cause a lot of problems. So there's rules you have to follow as well for that. So just keep that in mind. It's a shame we didn't put a reference to that right here because we probably could have put a reference to that. Okay. Specific uses. Okay, B, MC cables shall be permitted to be installed in compliance with Part 2 and Part 3 of 725. Okay, remember that is like low voltage applications, right? 725, Class 2, Class 3. We do that all the time. In fact, our newest MC PCS has Class 2, Class 3 in there as well. So that follows that. And then 770, you probably have seen applications where we have something like fiber optics inside of MC. Now I'll click on that so you can see it. This is optical fiber applications that are run. So again, you have allowances specific for that, where you can have an MC cable that's got power conductors in it, but it also will have 0 to 10, or it have a lower voltage type conductors run with it, or it will have fiber optic cables run with it. Again, you can get a bunch of different flavors of MC cable depending on your application. But you and I are probably used to the everyday workhorse, just regular old MC cable. You know what I'm saying? Swing. John says swinging could be something else. It absolutely could be, John. It absolutely could be. Not in this room, though. Okay. All right. So I'm too old to swing. I'm just saying. All right. So anyway, then it says as applicable and according with 330.10b1 through b4. So we got to look at each one of these. So these are specific uses. All right. Number one, MC cable in cable trays. MC cable installed in cable tray shall comply with 392. These are cable tray articles. So this is talking about other things in cable trays and how you would put them in the cable trays, the ampacity of conductors in a cable tray, how you can orient them in a cable tray. So this is all saying that, hey, it's okay to use MC cable in a cable tray. Okay, I can tell you all manufacturers out there, all of their MC is going to be evaluated for use in a cable tray. Why? Because 392 is going to have a list .10 of MC cable in it, because the different cable methods. But I can also tell you that all of us wouldn't go through the process of getting evaluated UL 1685 and all this other type of crap if we couldn't put it in a freaking cable tray. Okay. So all this is saying is, hey, remind you the moment that you're even though you got to go to 392 to learn about the different rules for putting cables and conductors in a cable tray, don't forget that you still have rules down here in 330 you still have to meet. But you also have additional rules up in 392, which is specifically for cable trays. You have to meet those rules as well. That's all that's saying. Direct burial. It's just reminding you that when you do install MC cable with a direct burial rating, with a PVC jacket, because that's going to be a wet location, obviously direct burial. If it has this direct burial notation on it, which can be printed on the PVC, okay. It says also remember that 300.5 comes into play. And then when you're over 1,000 volts, 305 comes into play because you can get MC cable in values that are over 2,000 volts, as well as what we probably use every day, the 1,000 volts or less, or 600 volt wiring methods, all those type of things. If it's going to be put in the earth, then it's still got to meet the depth of cover requirement at the top of the MC to whatever the finished grade is. That's your depth of cover. That's 300.5. And it also applies all those other rules as it emerges from grade and things like that. Okay, so you got to meet all those rules for direct burial. Installed as service entrance cable. MC cable installed as service entrance cable shall be permitted in accordance with 230.43. All this is reminding you that there's a list over in 230.43 that says what you can use and what you can't use as service entrance cables. Okay. Well, MC's in that list. That's all this is saying is, hey, have at it. Just remember, and I run into this with people, They do want to use MC many times. Again, it's a lot more work. I just use SE cable unless you're in an area that doesn't allow it. And by the way, SE cable is still not for use where subject to physical damage, no different than MC. Even though it looks harder, it's got an armor, it's got to meet a crush and impact test. At the end of the day, it's still MC cable is not for installations where it's subject to physical damage, believe it or not. So even though your SE cable, which looks like just a glorified non-metallic sheath cable product, it's still not subject to physical damage location. You can't put it there, but neither can you do MC. But again, that's all determining whether it's subject to physical damage or not. And you got to make that ruling, or the AHJ's got to make that ruling. Okay. But you can use MC for service. And I would say PVC jacketed MC. Okay. Probably more problematic. But again, might be easier than doing some type of raceway than EMT or rigid or any of that type of thing. Obviously, it'll be a little easier. And then, of course, installed outside of a building or structure or as aerial cable. It's like MC cable installed outside of a building or structure or as aerial cable shall comply with 225.10. Now, 225 is outdoor branch and feeder applications. Okay. And in 396 is messenger. So you got to meet some messenger requirements, right? And then you got uses permitted and uses not permitted. For example, I'll click on this one. Here's your uses permitted. And you'll see there's a list here. And you'll see that metal-clad is in this list of cables that are acceptable, okay, on a messenger. Still got to follow all the rules in 396, by the way. But at least it gets you started. You know that I could run an MC from point A to point B and support it on a messenger and be okay. And that may be your only options. Use is not permitted. MC cable shall not be used under either of the following conditions. Number one, we're subject to physical damage. This is one thing that people blow and don't understand, whether it's aluminum armor or it's steel armor. Doesn't matter. Okay? Pick your poison. Whichever one you want. Steel, okay? Aluminum is lighter. They both have to meet the exact same crush and impact test. Okay? So you might think, well, steel is stronger than aluminum. It may be, but they both have to meet the exact same test. So again, it's your choice. Okay? I'm not going to get in also this Facebook rabbit hole where people talk about, well, steel being magnetic versus ferrous versus non-ferrous aluminum and the ability for the EMF and I'm worried about the sine waves in my tinfoil hat and all that kind of, I'm not going to get into that crap. I just don't get into stuff like that. In fact, I even stopped being an expert witness on these EMF cases. You've got more EMF running around your house now with your Wi-Fi systems and the new Wi-Fi 7s and all this stuff that, dude, we're already frying brain cells anyway. So, now are people hypersensitive to EMF? Yes, they are. But at the end of the day, there is so much electronics around me. If I were to hold an EMF meter right here, it would probably go freaking bazonk. It is what it is. Okay. All right. We know that potato chips probably cause cancer, but are you going to stop eating potato chips? Hell no, you're probably not going to stop eating potato chips. I'm just saying. All right, anyway. So here's uses not permitted. So we're subject to physical damage. Now, this might be an example where you sleeve it in a raceway in an area that is subject to physical damage, okay? So you might sleeve it in EMT or you might do something like that. But that's the kind of the idea, and that's why it is okay to put it in a raceway. Let's see here. Number 2, it says we're exposed to destructive corrosive conditions in A or B. Okay, so here down here, unless the metallic sheathing or armor is resistant to the conditions or is protected by material resistant to the condition. Okay, so this is why people argue they don't understand, for example, and this has been a big argument in Code Panel 17. PVC jacketed MC, PVC is very resistant to corrosive conditions as long as you don't damage it during the install. Take extra precaution. So it does have a protective material that's resistant to these conditions. That's why it's marked direct burial. That's why you should be able to use it in a pool room, in a pool house, things like those applications. Why? Because it is very resistant to corrosive conditions. And you got to use proper fittings anyway. So at the end of the day, not an issue. Okay. So again, it can be direct buried in the earth. Use is not permitted unless it meets these conditions. Direct buried in earth or embedded in concrete unless identified for direct burial. That would be an example of a PVC jacketed MC that's going to have the markings on it. Okay. Next, exposed to cinder fills, strong chlorides, caustic alkalis, or vapors of chlorine, like in a pool room, or of hydrochloric acid. Okay. PVC jacketing is very resistant to that. In fact, at Encore Wire, I did a study for 18 months back when we were trying to get the code and explained about the importance of this. And it was something I really got immersed in a couple cycles ago to educate people about the resilience of a PVC extrusion and the fact that we have conductors inside of it that are wet rated location. They were worried about the armor. And I reminded people on traditional MC, we're only bonding the armor at each end. We're not using the armor as an effective ground fault current path. We bond it because depending on the proximity of the fault, it may serve as such and clear an overcurrent device, but we don't rely on that. That's why we have to put an equipment grounding conductor in it, unless it's the smart ground, more enhanced type of MC, which the armor is used as an equipment ground, and you have to have an equipment ground inside of it. We're talking traditional MC, which is typically what you're going to get. So it didn't matter in those pool rooms or those areas or in the ground, because you're bonding at each end through the fitting. You're going to bond it. Even if it broke somewhere in there, it's still going to be bonded, okay, at the system, because you got an equipment ground that's going to connect to those boxes to ensure that pass. So it wasn't that big of a deal. And so the PVC material is most certainly resistant to corrosive conditions if it's not damaged during install. So as an inspector, one of the things that we would look for is to see if the PVC material is damaged, if you scuffed it up. So be careful on your install. But again, PVC material is very resilient, and people misread the code in 680, and they don't understand that the manufacturers who produce that product already know that that PVC in its thickness is very resistant to corrosive conditions or anything like cinder fills, alkalides, and chlorides, and hydrochloric acid. In fact, the test that I did for 18 months is I immersed PVC jacketed MC, regular MC, and then PVC jacketed in a chamber that was filled with hydrochloric acid, and it was heated up outside to allow the vapors to circulate for 18 months. The PVC jacketed MC looked brand new when you stripped off the PVC. Did nothing to the PVC. Okay? Did nothing to it. Okay? Now, the other MC, the regular MC, totally trashed it, but not PVC jacketed MC. It looked great. Okay? So, anyway, enough of that. Okay. So, there you go. But again, we make a product like the PVC jacketed that does that. That's fine. Exposed work. Exposed runs of cable except as provided in 300.11b. That is, again, above suspended ceilings. We looked at that a second ago. It says, shall closely follow the surface of the building finish or on running boards. So again, unless you're going across the support structures or being supported by guide wires, or you're running it from framing member to framing member or through framing members. Other than that, it runs close with the building finish, or you'd have to run it on running boards. We don't want it to droop. We don't want to put any undue stress at terminations. Again, obviously, the bigger the MC, the bigger the worry, right? Oh, by the way, TikTok is streaming behind the scenes. I do not answer questions on TikTok. If you want to ask a question, you got to go to the live. I do not interact on TikTok anymore, okay, when it comes to questions. Sorry. Not my favorite platform. All right, so it says exposed runs shall also be permitted to be installed on the underside of joists where supported at each joist and located so as not to be subject to physical damage. So can I run them under floor from joist to joist to joist? Absolutely I can, as long as I'm doing what? I'm supporting it at each joist. So it's a lot of straps, by the way, every joist, okay? And it has to be where it's not subject to physical damage. And most of those places, we got to use common sense. It's not going to be subject to physical damage in a crawl space or under maybe a conditioned crawl space where it's not necessarily a wet location. Or, be honest with you, crawl spaces, I don't categorize crawl spaces under a building as wet or even damp. Now, your jurisdiction may be different depending on the nature and vents and what. I still consider it a dry location. And if you think about it, you go in there and you look up and you look at the insulation, you look at the wood framing members that are being used. Are all those rated for wet location? No, it's probably just standard framing members. There's a difference. So you got to look around and see what dictates your environment, that type of thing. But all we're saying here is that you could secure that MC cable at every joist, then you could run it under the joists, that type of thing. 330.17. It may be damp. You have to make that call. I'm not going to say every, I would say 99% of the crawl spaces I went into, dry. I mean, I see dirt. It's not wet. People say, well, damp. It could be the moisture, humidity. Come on, let's stop, guys. We're making the code way too hard. Okay. If you get under there and you don't see signs of moisture, you see, then it's a dry location. Inspectors, don't overcomplicate it. Okay. Right? Don't. If you get underneath the floor, now you'll be able to dictate the environment, or maybe your jurisdiction has other rules as an inspector. Okay. At the end of the day, look around. Look at the other building material that's there. Are they rated for damp or wet location? Probably not. So I'm in a dry location, especially if I'm be up in the joists. If you're going to run below it and the dirt looks fine, not look wet, how has it become a damp or wet location? No different than on your porch. Just because you have a porch, does that mean that it's a damp? Just because I'm in a bathroom, does that make it a damp or wet location because I could have steam in the room? No, it's still a dry location, except for the areas that are designated within the tub or shower spaces. Now, you get what I'm saying? Under a sink. I have people all the time tell me, well, under the sink in a kitchen's a wet location because it has water lines under there. No, it's not. It's a dry location. You get what I'm saying? We have a tendency today, and I'm not talking about you, JC. I'm just talking in general. You know what I'm saying? We have a tendency to read too much into shit, and then it ends up taking us down this rabbit hole, right? That type of thing. Yeah. City of Plano. I was just in Texas. If City of Plano has issues, call me, because your inspectors, I'm more than happy to fly back out to Texas and do a training session for inspectors. Inspectors make their life too hard by taking it too personal and going further than they really need to go. And that's coming from me. Okay. And that's a guy who teaches inspectors and done that for years. Okay. I'm just saying. All right. So 330.17. Virginia, Maryland. Yeah. Hey, Virginia, I'm Maryland, DC. I'm teaching a course in a couple months up in Maryland area, or it's up in Dulles. I'm teaching a course for the IEC. So if you're in the area, look for that. Look for their flyer to come out. I'm teaching code changes 2020 up in Dulles, and it's going to give credit to Virginia, Maryland, and DC. So I got approved to teach all of that up there, and it's through the IEC. So check that out if you're in that area. All right. 330.17, through or parallel to framing members. MC cables shall be protected in accordance with 300.4A, C, and D were installed through or parallel to framing members. Okay. So I'll just show you 300.4A. If you're going to take it through bored holes, then you're going to protect it exactly the same as you would non-metallic sheath cable. Okay. It says shall be protected in accordance. And then you got C and D. So read up. When you run it parallel, that means you're still going to maintain 1.25 inches, or you're going to have protective strips and things like that. So you still have the rules that you have to meet. Okay. Now this is interesting. I'll take you real quick to 300.4 because I do want to show you the differences in these real quick. So you see A is bored holes. Okay. And then notches. You notice B isn't on the list, right? B wasn't there. It was C and then D, okay? But you know why B is not on it? Because B is specific to non-metallic sheath cable and electrical non-metallic tubing, okay? Okay, run through metal framing members. Not an issue for MC running through metal framing members. It is for non-metallic and electrical non-metallic tubing through framing members. I had $1 for everybody that screws 300.4 up when it comes to MC cable. I'd be a rich man. I'm just saying. Okay, so again, only have to follow the ones that it references. Okay, A, C, and D. All right, where was I? Okay, back here. All right, so there you go. Next, in attic spaces, the installation of type MC cable in accessible attics or roof spaces shall comply with 320.23. Now, you all know that 320 is AC cable. And it does the same thing for non-metallic sheath cable, right? It references the 320.23. So the reason it does that is to, again, we don't do this a lot in the code, but it saves regurgitating information because the rules are going to be exactly the same. If you have IEC, International, I don't know, Independent Electrical Contractors, I believe is what it's called. So I'm not a member. I'm not a member of any union. I'm not a member of any. I just do what I can do to help them and educate their people, that type of thing. So I was asked if I would teach a course, and I said sure. And I'm closer to them now because I am back in Virginia, so it just made sense to help out. Again, I'm always trying to give and teach people. So they want to do the event. They charge an admission. I'm not getting paid anything for it. I'm doing it for free. Okay, so think about that. I usually get $4,500 for my day sessions. I'm going to be doing a class up there for them for free. And I think it's an 80 seat minimum or 80 seat maximum. So once they release that, you better grab your seat because we're going to be doing it in the evening, like 2 to 5. And there'll be a dinner served as well, that type of thing. And you can ask questions to me and things like that. So anyway, it's your IEC chapter in Virginia, Maryland, that type of thing. I don't know the details. I'm sorry. All right. Anyway, so again, so this has to do with whether you have access to the attic with steps that are permanent or it's a scuttle hole. It means you have a little pop-up access. So if you have, for example, stairs versus a scuttle hole, then the distance would be 7 feet in all directions versus 6 feet in all directions. Okay, kind of like an umbrella over the opening. The protection of those cables, it's going to depend on whether or not you have a scuttle hole or permanent stairs. Okay. So go read 320.23, but it's going to be germane to not only AC cable, but also MC cable and also non-metallic sheath cable. All of them are going to reference 320.23. So just because you think it's AC, it is germane to all of those when it's referenced. Okay. And I don't know that enhanced shows a picture. No, it doesn't show a picture. Bending radius. Bending radius, again, I see people screwing this up all the time, and I get picture after picture as a wiring cable manufacturer of people that bend the MC and they go, is this okay? And then the backside of the convolution is pulled loose and exposes the conductors. No, the MC's damaged at that point. There is no market available repair for damaged MC. So you contact the manufacturer. We cannot give you a way to fix a damaged MC. Okay. Now you can get creative. You can put jumpers on it. You can remember it's just bonding. It's still, even though it broke apart, it's still, the strip is still connected. So it's still bonded. You can do whatever you want to do to it, but remember, you own it. Don't expect the manufacturer to fix your F up. Okay. And I have a problem if people do that. They want the manufacturer to fix everybody else's installation issues. Okay. Yes, that 4,500 includes my airfare and meals typically and lodging when I go somewhere. Okay. So that's what my seminar charge is for a day. Anyway, I'm one of the cheaper ones, Ronald. All right. So bending radius. Bends in type MC cable shall not be made so that the cable shall be made so that the cable will not be damaged. If you call us and you bend it too tight and you pop those convolutions loose, you've damaged it. Now, how you repair it, it's up to you. Okay. I'm not even gonna give advice on how to repair it. I came up with a repair product that I wanted to patent, but nobody was interested in it. So I'm not interested in being a manufacturer of products. So I said, screw it. It is what it is. Okay. Now, you might be able to just tape it, do whatever, but that's on you. Okay. Now, the radius of the curve of the inner edge of any bend shall not be less than the required in 330.24A through C. So what that means is the inner bend has to be at least the values that we're going to talk about here. They can't be tighter than that. So from the point where the bend starts to the point where the bend ends, they can't be tighter than the values that I'm going to give you here. And what are those based on? They're based on the OD of the cable, which you get from the manufacturer. It's published. It's every manufacturer publishes their OD of their product. All right. So smooth sheathed. Okay. That's the smooth extracted. Okay. That is extruded, not extracted, extruded. So it's 10 times the external diameter of the metallic sheathing for a cable. If it's not more than 3/4 of an inch in external diameter, manufacturer will give it to you. Okay. What kind of lodging is suitable for me? I'm not real picky. I'm not one of those fancy dancies. I stay in Holiday Inns, and I'm a Marriott guy. I typically stay in a Marriott, that type of thing. So 12 times it if it is if it is 3/4 inch, more than 3/4, but not more than 1.5, right? So then that would be 12 times. And then 15 times if it is more than 1.5 in external diameter. So you get that from the manufacturer. You take that value, you multiply it times either 10 times, 12 times, or 15 times. That's going to give you a certain number of inches. And so you have to make sure that you are not exceeding that radius. And you remember how we do radius, right? A ball, the hole around it is the circumference. Across it's the diameter. From the center out is the radius. So whatever this tells me, this value, okay, since it's talking radius, so it's 15 times, let's say, the 2 inch. So it's 2 times 15. That is your radius. So if you take that radius and you multiply it times 2, that would be like wrapping it around a ball that is that, okay, diameter. Because the radius is from the center out, so it's the pivot point on the ball. So it's like you're wrapping it around the ball. You get what I'm saying? So that type of thing. So, but I'm going to be honest with you. When it comes to MC cable, when you're bending it, you guys know you're just going to bend it, but you're not going to bend it to the point where you blow out the back end. Where does this become a big issue? Obviously, larger MC. It's not as easy to mess with, and you start to bend it. And if you try to bend it a lot, you could blow out the back end and damage it. And that's a bigger costly expense because you're talking bigger conductors. Plus, it won't bend as easy. Trust me, it won't bend nearly as easy. So, but again, bending, we don't care as long as you don't blow out the armor. That's the biggest thing, right? John says it's only been so far 90s, good 95 degrees, not so much. Yeah, you start bending it tighter than a 90, you're going to blow out the back end of it, or you're going to pop in the inside, and those armor could turn into the cable and could damage the conductors inside of it. And thank God it has a wrap binder, because people do some funky things. Where have I seen this become a problem for people is that they forget that it's not non-metallic sheath cable. Yeah, I'm not lying. They come down and they try to turn it tight to get it back up into a box because they think that extra, maybe they came from residential and they're just starting to do some MC work and they want this big loop underneath it. Don't do that. I'd rather you just come straight into the box, okay? To get away from these, especially no loops on MC cable. Unnecessary to create loops. Puts undue tension on the cable assembly itself. Just go right to the box. You get me? I'm just saying, okay? Now, of course, you give us manufacturers a get out of jail free card, because if I get called out, and again, I get called out to a project and I see that armor popped on the backside, then I'm going to come up with all kinds of theories on why your system may have failed to get my manufacturer out of liability. And if you've damaged it, I can tell you 100% of the time, I get my company out of liability. So remember that. So before you call in a claim or threaten the manufacturer, just remember there are goofy dudes like me behind the scenes that look for all of the ways to get our manufacturer out of the liability. And if you don't like that, sorry, welcome to the world. Okay, that's why I get paid the big bucks, they say, right? At least that's what they tell me anyway. All right, back to the bending radius. Okay, that's smooth. So now for interlocked and corrugated, okay, or continuous welded, could be followed under the corrugated moniker. It's 7 times the exterior diameter of the metallic cable. Okay, so for the normal interlock that you guys use every day of the week, all you're going to take is take the OD, the external diameter, multiply it times 7. And that is the maintained bending radius on that MC. Okay, so basically it's like bending it around a baseball, that type of scenario. Um, don't extend that. Don't go further than that, or get to the point where it even looks like you're going to damage the armor. You got a problem because there is no market available repair for damaged MC. Okay, I'm just saying there isn't. Now there's some creative ways I could talk about, but I'm not going to talk about it because the damn internet would go crazy over my recommendations on how to repair damaged MC, and I ain't going there. I ain't going there today. All right, shielded conductors. It's 12 times the overall diameter of one of the individual conductors, or 7 times the overall diameter of the multi-conductor cable, whichever is greater. That is when you have shielded, maybe like a polymeric aluminum shielding or whatever that's inside of the actual MC. Then that's what this would be example of a shielded type. That this does not mean shielded, does not mean the metal armor. That's the armor over the MC. Okay, that type of. JC says he'll just tape it. Okay. Well, I'm not going to say anything, JC. Not even going to mention it. All right, 330.30, securing and supporting. Y'all remember the dot 30 is very similar. Dot 30 with all these different wiring methods, securing and supporting. Dot 30. MC cables shall be supported and secured by staples, cable ties listed and identified for securement. And I don't know a cable tie that would not be listed for that. I'm just saying. Today, who the hell would make one unless it's one of those Chinese? Okay, so you might want to check the ones at Harbor Freight. I don't have no problem using them, but you may want to check the packaging and see what they're listed for. But other than that, I mean, why make a? I mean, I love Harbor Freight, but why make a cable tie if it's not for securing and supporting? I don't know why you would. Maybe it's, I don't know. It's definitely a cable ties for securing, I would think. Anyway, it talks about straps, hangers, and similar fittings. Okay. Now, here's the thing. Staples aren't technically a listed thing. They're a fastener, securement. JC got some from Temu. We got them in bulk, right? But you know what? Even those are probably rated for, or listed and identified for that. So, but anyway, or maybe not. They save money. And if you don't get a listing, then you save a lot of money. Let me tell you what, Encore Wire, for example, to put that little UL mark on there, pays millions of dollars a year. Did y'all know that? Millions of dollars a year just to have that UL mark. And that's per different products. Okay. Each one gets evaluated differently and they have to pay to use that little mark, that little UL on every piece of it. Okay. What about using tie wire? Frank, right here, cable ties. You just like a tie wire. Well, that one's going to be right here. Other approved means. So if your AHJ is perfectly okay with a tie wire, right? I don't have a problem. Installed such that it's not going to damage the cable. I don't have a problem with a tie wire. In fact, as an AHJ or a deputy for the AHJ, I approved many securements supported with MC cable above a suspended ceilings with the use of tie wires, right? And I had no problem with it at all. Now, the only problem I may have with it is if you're using something that would be a dissimilar metal and you're tying it, yeah. But in general, tie wires are fine. And it was AHJ. It's certainly not going to damage it. So I would think an AHJ would have no problem with that at all. But again, always check with your AHJ just to make sure. Okay. Also, it says the MC cable fittings shall be permitted as a means of cable support. So why is that statement important? Why is that in gray? Because if I have some unsupported MC cable going from a box, let's say down to a luminaire, and we're going to look at that in a minute. But if I have this unsupported piece, then it says it has to be secured within, let's say, 6 feet. It is considered secured when it comes to the cable fitting, right? So that's why it's important to make this statement, because there are many people that say, well, I got a fitting and I got this 6-foot whip of unsupported cable. They go, oh my, I need you to put a strap in there. And you're like, no, it is considered supported, okay, at the box, okay, that type of thing. Anyway, here is, they don't really give any example of that scenario. But again, a cable fitting, and we'll see what we're talking about here in a minute. All right, so anyway, where are we at? Okay, so let's get down in securing. All right, so what is the rules with securing? All right, because the supporting, we says right here, in general, we have to support and secure it. We can use these types of methods, okay? Even Frank's tie wire, if the AHJ is okay with it. Now, securing, unless otherwise permitted in the code. That's an important statement because you're going to have permission for unsupported cables here in a second. But it says, unless otherwise permitted in the code, that means if somewhere else in the code deviates from this, it's okay because somewhere else in the code says it's okay. Okay. Remember, chapters 1, 2, and 3, and 4 are general, right? 5, 6, and 7 modify or supplement chapters 1 through 7 where applicable, means it can change the general rule, right? And then, of course, you have chapter 8, which is a standalone, okay, communications and things like that. So it's saying, unless permitted otherwise, here are the rules. It says cables shall be secured in intervals not exceeding 6 feet. Okay, so every 6 feet, you're going to secure that MC cable. However, here's something that people miss. It says cables containing 4 or fewer conductors, size no larger than 10. So it contains maximum of 4, and the conductors of the conductors inside of that MC are what? No larger than 10. So they're 10 and smaller. It says if that's the case, then it says it shall be secured within 12 inches of every box, cabinet, fitting, or other cable termination. So when you leave a box, you need to have a strap, a staple, a cable tie, or tie wire like Frank likes, within 12 inches. Anywhere in there, within 12 inches. Right? If it has 4 conductors or less, right, and they're 10 gauge and smaller. So it's to secure within 12 inches. However, it says, okay, well, what does that mean? Well, what if it's not? What if it's more than 4 conductors? Or what if the conductors are larger than 10? Well, then you follow the general rule and you secure it and support it every 6 feet. So this is why you may have some big MC with the 4/0. I'm just saying. It comes out and then the strap is maybe closer to 6 feet away. Why is that okay? Because the requirement to secure it within 12 inches only applies to the MC cables that have 4 or fewer and the conductors are not larger than 10. Okay. So I could go up to 6 feet with larger MC. Okay. You hear what I'm saying? All right. Now it also says, what about vertical installations? It's, well, a vertical straight up and down, like a riser applications. Okay. It says right here, in vertical installations, listed cables with ungrounded conductors, that's the HOTS, by the way, of 250 kcm and larger shall be permitted to be secured at intervals not exceeding 10 feet. So horizontal applications, every 6 feet. Vertical applications, every 6 feet, unless it's 250 kcm and larger, right, of ungrounded conductors, then I could go up to 10 feet. Now, why is that? Well, that's because typically if you're going to run it in vertical, you're probably running it from floor to floor. And so because of the spacing of the ceilings, the way the floors are, 8-foot ceilings, drop ceiling, slab to slab, getting access to it, it made more sense to do it every 10 feet. Okay. So at the end of the day, you can go up to 10 feet if it's 250 kcmil conductors inside or larger, and you're running in a vertical application, not horizontal. Horizontal is still 6 feet. Okay. Now, what about the supporting? So that's securement. Okay. You have to secure it every 6 feet, but it's still got to be supported. And the securement may supply the support. What's up, Joshua? Thanks for coming. Okay. Glad you're here. Welcome to Coffee Hour. All right, so supporting, unless otherwise permitted in the code, again, would be the unsupported links as an example. It says, for supporting, it shall be supported at intervals not exceeding 6 feet. So see, these are pretty easy to remember. Secured every 6 feet, supported every 6 feet, okay? Now, it goes on to say, again, unless otherwise permitted, okay, which we have some otherwise permitted rules up here, vertical application, 10 feet, depending on the conductor sizes. Supporting, it says horizontal runs of MC cable installed in wood and notice installed in wood or in metal framing members or similar supporting means shall be considered supported and secured where such support does not exceed 6 feet. Okay, so is it considered supported if I run it over framing members? Absolutely, it's considered supported, okay, horizontally, right? That type of scenario. Still has to be secured, but it's considered supported. Now, here is the unsupported cable. When can I run it unsupported? Well, it says MC cable shall be permitted to be unsupported and unsecured. Okay, that 6 foot, 6 foot things you remember when it comes to MC. By the way, AC cable is 4.5 feet. It's just like non-metallic sheet cable when it comes to supporting it. So unsupporting MC cable, it says, okay, I can do that where the cable complies with any, not all of these, any of these. Okay. Number one, what if it's a finished building and I'm coming back and I'm like called back because I got to fish something in the wall? It says, okay, if it's fished between access points, junction boxes, through concealed spaces behind sheetrock wall, for example, in a finished building. So again, you can't be in construction. You don't have your CO yet. And you're thinking, oh crap, I forgot I can't fish something in because it's not a finished building yet. So you still have to secure and support and do everything you're supposed to do in a normal construction. It's not finished yet. But then it says, or structures and supporting is impractical, which means that maybe something has happened. And at this point, a piece of equipment may have been put in. It's not a finished building yet, but it says, or structure or supporting is impractical. Maybe the timing screwed up and they put in a piece of equipment that you can't get behind, but you can get from top to the bottom and you could fish it in. Double check with your AHJ because of using this one. Make sure they don't have a problem. But be honest with you, it have to be impractical to do anything otherwise. I couldn't move the big heavy piece of equipment and I still got to get power there. And of course, they could say, well, you could run it on the surface. It's behind the equipment, so it's not really subject to physical damage. I'm not going to let you conceal it or fish it, that type of thing. Got to work with your AHJ, but you do have some leeway here. Again, interpretation being what it is. Next, it says, it is not more than 6 feet in length from the last point of cable support. Okay. All right. Okay. And that's what's important about this rule right here. The fitting is considered a support. Yeah. You see where it's going with this? So it says, if it's not more than 6 feet from the last point of cable support to the point of connection to a luminaire or other electrical equipment, and the cable and point of connection are within an accessible ceiling. So that's going from a box down to a piece of equipment. I can go up to 6 feet. That's a whip. We call it a whip. Y'all are familiar with that? Fixture whip, luminaire whip, okay, equipment whip. As long, and this is important because making that statement about the fitting being considered a support, then that means that it can go from that support, which is at the box, up to 6 feet to the luminaire. Words matter. And so this was added in the 2023. Now, I believe that most AHJs will, this is a good example where I tell people all the time, what happens if I want to do this and I'm in a jurisdiction that doesn't make this as clear because they're on an earlier edition? What can I do? Well, one of the things that you can do is go to your jurisdiction and see if they will let you do an amendment, a modification. Maybe specifically, maybe you have hundreds of these in the ceiling and they're making you put back wings and run your own separate securement from the ceiling to the grid just for that MC, just a little 6 foot of MC. And you're like, Jeemus, that's going to be a lot of work. And in the 2023 code, it makes it very clear, right? So maybe you go to your AHJ and say, look, I'd like to submit for a modification or an amendment. And they go, well, what's your grounds for this? Show them the 2023 NEC, how we've progressed, and see if they will give you a variance on that one application. And there is a probability that they may. I used to give them all the time in the city of Richmond when people would come to me with the next edition, and I would look at it and go, well, the code's going to allow this anyway. I know you're not under the 2023. I know that you're under the 2020, but I will let you do this, okay? Because I know that is where we're going in the next cycle. So again, so that people don't take advantage of that, I will give you a variance for that. It's going to cost you money because the city wants their money. We'll give you a variance only for that specific thing. Okay, that's it. That one project. Don't give up on that. If you're in a jurisdiction and you want to do something like that, give it a shot. See if they have a variance. Make them educated on this is where the code's going. It might not be there yet, but it's getting there. And it may be a possibility that you can get a variance on that specific application. What's up, Beto B? I'm going to remind you because you weren't here earlier. You might have come in late. You won in the second quarter, Beto. You had won a minimalist wallet, but I have not gotten your mailing address and your choice, whether it's a journeyman or master. You have not sent that to me at winner, W-I-N-N-E-R, okay? W-I-N-N-E-R at fasttracksystem.com. Got to send me your full name, mailing address, and which type of minimalist wallet you would like. Master, journeyman, there's a couple other designs, but you have to let me know. Otherwise, you won't get anything. Okay, so just want to shout out, let you know, because I saw your name pop up in here. All right, let's get back to it here. Okay, so then the third one is it is type MC of the interlocked armor type in lengths not exceeding 3 feet from the last point where it's it's securely fastened and is used to connect equipment where flexibility is necessary to minimize the transmission of vibration from equipment or to provide flexibility for equipment that requires movement after installation. Okay. So you have an allowance, by the way. A Van Man, you too. I just noticed you want a minimalist wallet as well, Van Man, but I have not gotten your information either at winner, W-I-N-N-E-R at fasttracksystem.com. I need to know the type of wallet you want, master or journeyman, and you need to send me the address. Okay. All right. Your mailing address. And you got to let me know what you won, minimalist wallet, and your full name and mailing address at winner, W-I-N-N-E-R at fasttracksystem.com. All right. So now what's the difference in these two? People say, because you know, people are getting, attention deficit disorder. The difference is 6 feet to luminaires or equipment, right? Electrical equipment. And then you have with MC interlocked, you have a 3 feet for other types of applications where things may move, may have vibration, flexibility is necessary. So we're reducing the length down. The luminaires and things like that are not going to move in the ceiling. You know what I'm saying? Shouldn't move in the ceiling. All right, 330.31 single conductors where single conductor cables with a non-ferrous armor or sheathing are used. Okay, non-ferrous. The installation shall comply with 300.20. Okay, right. Keep in mind with that application. Ampacity. Okay, ampacity. The ampacity of type MC cable shall be determined in accordance with 310.14 or 315 if you're using it for like a medium voltage application or over 2000 volt application. For 14 and larger conductors and in accordance with table 402.5 for 18 and 16. That's smaller conductors. Okay, if you're not familiar with 400.2, it's fixture wire ampacities. So if you happen to have that smaller type of MC, which it is permitted, okay, to have, okay, if you have that application. Let's see here. I wish I hadn't done that because it took me away from everything. Let me get back to where I was at. Anyway, there you go. So there's your ampacity. So for me and you, typically the ampacity is 310/16, but we do have adjustment and corrective applications. And you will see that there is a benefit for MC cable and bundling. If you look at 310.15 C1, you will see that there are some allowances up to a certain number of current carrying conductors in a bundle that you, even after adjustment and corrections, you're still fine. They have some allowances for bundling in those applications. But again, be aware of that. It can affect your ampacity. If you're not familiar with adjustment and corrections, make sure you go watch my video, adjustment and corrections. It's derating demystified. It's over on Fast Tracks Tube. I have a version 2 and a version 3. Version 3 is a newer one. Go check it out. Okay. So MC cable that's installed, it's basically, hold on here. It says the installation shall not exceed the temperature rating of the terminals and the equipment. Absolutely right. So even though the conductors inside of that MC cable may be rated 90, okay, wet or dry, THHN/THWN-2 or XHHW-2. They may rate at 90. At the end of the day, again, the temperature rating of the terminals or the equipment is going to come into play. Typical, the terminals are probably going to be 75 or 60, probably more 75 today, right? And a lot of your equipment's probably going to be defaulted at 75-degree termination. So using the 90 for adjustment and corrective is very common for us in wiring methods. But also at the end of the day, we still can't exceed the values of the terminal limitations, whether it's the equipment, the breaker, all those type of things. So just keep that in mind. Now, A, when it comes again, we're still talking ampacity. A, it says MC cable installed in a cable tray. It says the ampacities for MC cable installed in a cable tray shall be determined in accordance with 392.80. Important to remember, we have normal ampacity situations, but if you're going to install this MC cable in a cable tray, which you can do, 392.10 permits this, it is a cable assembly, then you have to follow some rules up here. And if you look at 392.80, okay, you'll see that it'll talk about some of these rules down here, okay? And it talks about, again, mirrors things about adjustments. So the adjustment factors in 310.15C1 that I was talking about shall only apply to multi-conductor cables with more than 3 current carrying conductors. Important. Okay? If it's more than 3. So if it's 3, it's okay. It says more than 3. All right. It says adjustment factors shall be limited to the number of current carrying conductors in the cable, not the number of conductors in the cable tray. That's important. If you're designing a system, you really realize that I'm putting these cables in a cable tray, that as long as I don't have more than 3 current carrying conductors in each cable, then I'm putting them in the cable tray and I'm following the rules in the cable tray, right? Because we got rules in 392.22 that says how you space them and how you install them. If I follow those rules, then I don't have to worry about 310.15C1. Okay? That's so important, these rules. I just look, I've been doing this for nearly 40 freaking years. I still love how the code works. Even though people say it needs to be easier to understand, I love it. I love how you have to read the nuances. And that's why, as I became an electrician years ago, I realized that it wasn't just about being able to turn some screws and torque things. I learned this. And that's where it all opened up for me. And I realized that, you know what, to be the best electrician I can be and troubleshoot things for people and be and make my life easier, I started to learn. And there's a reason why we secure things the way we do. There's a reason why we do certain things and ampacities, because of the code. So if you're somebody out there that thinks, well, I just do it, I'm just a worker, you're never going to get to the next level of knowledge. And that's what we're here for, right? I mean, life is short. Get as much knowledge as you can, right? You got to learn the code, because the code is what drives the field installation. Whether you like it or not, it drives it, okay? I can teach a monkey to run cable, but I can't teach a monkey to understand the nuances of securing, supporting, ampacities, installation. Okay, stop being a monkey. Just saying. That was the moral of the story. Stop being a monkey. All right, 2, it says where cable trays are continuously covered for more than 6 feet, that's going to change the ampacity of those conductors, okay? So again, vital, okay, for you to understand all of these rules in here, okay? And I have a video on cable trays and securing and supporting. I have a blog as well that talks about this over on our website. If you haven't visited my blogs yet, what's wrong with you? What is wrong with you? All right, so anyway, there you go. So that's ampacity. Single type MC conductors grouped together, okay? So this is maybe if you're taking the ones with a single conductor in it, very rare, but in case you have it, and if you're not familiar with that, is a single conductor by the armor, and they're treated like an MI, a single conductor MI, although they make MI with multiple conductors. Basically bringing them all together. So if you had a 3 hots and a neutral or whatever in an equipment ground, they would be separate. And you just make sure they all stay close together, right? That type of thing. So it says where single type NC connectors are grouped together in a triangular or a square configuration. Make sure where I'm at. Okay, I'm still in 330. It says ration, typically you're going to strap them together in a triad or a quad type of design in the tray or in installation in general, not just in a tray. You're kind of tying them together. Okay, these are single conductors. You have to tie them together so they act as one. Okay, you don't get any wild magnetic fields and things like that. Okay, it says, and it says grouped together in a triangular or square configuration and installed on a messenger or exposed with a maintenance-free airspace, a maintained airspace of at least 2.15 times one conductor diameter. So it's 2.15 times the OD of the largest conductor contained within the configuration. Okay. Maybe I'm doing all 250 kc mils. I just take one of them, that type of thing. Okay. Contained in the configuration and adjust conductor's configuration or cable. The ampacity of the conductors shall not exceed the allowable ampacities in the following tables. This is not brain surgery. So if you're running a system where you're on a messenger or you're exposed in a maintained free airspace because of your spacing, and you're following it, and you're going to be putting them in a triad or in a quad or a square configuration, if you're going to do that and you maintain spacing, all it's saying is the ampacity of those conductors have to meet these rules: 310.20 or 315.60. This is for medium voltage. This would be for low voltage, again, which 2000 volts or less applications, okay? So it's not brain surgery. It just reminds you where to go if you have that unique installation. That's why I tell people all the time, you don't have to memorize code. You just have to know where to go and find it. And when you read it, know how to apply it. That type of scenario. Thermal insulation. Okay. All right. Watch this one. Ready? It says where more than two type MC cables containing two or more current carrying conductors. And by the way, a MC cable with a 14.2 in it with an equipment ground, or a 12.2 with equipment ground, that is two current carrying conductors in that cable, the black and the white. Okay. Just for craps and giggles. So it says where you have more than two. So three or more, right? So where more than two MC cables that contain two or more current carrying conductors in each cable are installed in contact. All right, look, not through, not on top. It says in contact with it. So if it's touching it, okay, it says are installed in contact with thermal insulation, caulk, or sealing foam without maintaining spacing between the cables. It says the ampacity of each conductor shall be adjusted in accordance with 310.15C1. Okay. So again, read it. It says are installed in contact with thermal insulation, caulk, or sealing foam without maintaining spacing between the cables as they go through that caulk, that sealing foam, or that thermal insulation. Now, if they come in contact with thermal insulation and nothing, and they're not touching, right? They maintain spacing through that contact area, then I don't have to worry about 310.15C at that point, okay, based on this issue. Got other issues, but not in this issue. So also important to read the details. You know what I'm saying? Details matter. Now, lastly, we'll talk construction. Again, this gets taken care of by the manufacturer. You don't have to lose brain cells over this, okay? The conductors, it makes it very clear. The conductors, it can be an MC cable. It says it can be the ungrounded, grounding, and equipment grounding conductors. The minimum conductor size is 14 copper, nickel, or nickel-coated copper. Have not seen those in years, okay? And 12 aluminum or 12 copper-clad aluminum. It says the control circuit conductors. This is how we can get away with the MCPCS, for example, which is done for power and remote control. It says for control and signaling, the minimum conductor size is 18 gauge copper or 14 gauge copper-clad aluminum or 12 gauge aluminum, okay? Equipment grounding conductor. It says where type MC cable is used to provide an equipment grounding conductor, it shall comply with 250.118A10 and 250.122. Obviously, 250.122 is based on the size of the overcurrent protected device. So that covers the equipment ground that's put inside of the MC cable. All MC cable requires an equipment ground, whether it's the wire type in traditional MC, or you have this new smart ground products like Southwire has what's called MCAP. Encore Wire and Prismium have what's called smart ground. That is where you don't have an equipment ground inside of the cable assembly, the assembly. What you have is an aluminum grounding / bonding conductor that runs outside of the binder, and it makes intimate contact with all the metal convolutions. And when you get to the end, you just snip it off. It doesn't really do any good. All it's doing is making contact with all of the armor. That way, the armor can be used as long as you use a proper fitting. Can't use a standard fitting. It's got to be an MCI-A fitting. Think of A as advanced, or think of the A as the armor is being used as an equipment ground. Then at that point, you don't have an equipment ground in there. Okay, that type of thing. So regular MC, you do not use the armor as an effective ground fault current path, although you still need to bond it. Okay. And that means using proper fittings that are listed, and you're required to do that anyway, terminating it properly, all that type of stuff. You still have to maintain the integrity of the path. Okay. So, and then of course, the 250.118A10, I'll click on that. And again, that's just going to show you. Let's get down here to 250. Let's see here, 118. Let me get you down. I'll show you. I always like showing you just so we can end on positive notes. There's 250.118. These are the different types of equipment grounds. Okay. And you get down to 10 right here, MC. And this is a good little lesson for folks. It says MC cable that provides an effective ground fault current path in accordance with one or more of the following. One or more. Number one, it contains an insulated or uninsulated equipment grounding connector in compliance with 250.118.1. That's the wire. Okay, so you can have a conductor in there. It can be insulated and uninsulated. A lot of people have a misconception about that. Most of the time when you see an insulated equipment grounding conductor, it's something like when you're doing healthcare facility where you have a MC that's the HCF version, which the armor is the smart ground. So it has this 10 gauge aluminum grounding / bonding conductor in there. And then inside of the bundle, it also has an equipment ground, but it is insulated because that is required by 517.13A and B. Okay. But in normal MC, that equipment ground could be bare or insulated. It's basically up to the manufacturer. Now, most manufacturers will insulate their equipment ground in smaller MC products, but when you start getting to the bigger MC, like the feeder type MC, then we don't insulate it because it's extra cost that is unnecessary. PVC costs money. And so why is a manufacturer just going to give that away when it doesn't matter as far as the minimum safety standard? It can be bare or insulated. Okay, that type of thing. Now, why do we insulate it for the smaller stuff, you might ask? If that's the case, why spend the money? One, it's thinner. And two, the reason is because we produce that product already insulated and we just throw it into the cable. It's used in other applications, right? We'll use it in our healthcare facility type of MC. We'll use it as sell it by itself, insulated green. So it just makes more sense to carry more of that than it would be the bare. The only exception to that is when we run bare for non-metallic sheath cable. We keep that product over in a separate plant just for the non-metallic sheath cable products, that type of thing. But that's the smaller sizes. It's not as significant in insulation, and it's costly. Once you get to the big conductors, why put insulation on it if it's not necessary for the equipment ground? You get me? Yeah, we're trying to save money here, okay? That type of thing. Y'all get me. Y'all know what I'm talking about. All right, so anyway, so that's that. The next one, it says, this is the one, this is where you learn stuff. Here it says, a combined metal sheathing and uninsulated equipment grounding / bonding conductor. That's what you folks see in that MCAP or that smart ground products that you can buy. That aluminum conductor. And people ask me, if I had $1 for what everybody asked me about that aluminum conductor, they go, do I bring that into the box? What do I do with it? You cut it off at the end. You don't need it anymore. It was only there to make intimate contact with the convolutions. Okay, that's a grounding / bonding conductor. That is not an equipment grounding conductor. But that grounding / bonding conductor makes the armor qualify as an equipment grounding conductor. Why? Because it says right here, it says the combination of the metallic sheathing and uninsulated equipment grounding / bonding conductor of interlocked metal tape type MC cable that is listed and identified as an equipment grounding conductor. That is your MCAP. That's your smart ground from Encore Wire, and I don't know the names for the other manufacturers, okay? That's what that is. Now, why does it say interlocked here? Because corrugated as well as the smooth already qualify as an equipment ground. We're only talking interlocked in this allowance right here, okay? And where do we see that? Okay, and there you go. This next one is what qualifies that statement. It says, the metal sheathing or the combined metallic sheathing and equipment grounding conductors of a smooth or corrugated tube type MC that is listed and identified as an equipment grounding conductor. Okay. All right. Notice that it says this right here, or, okay, smooth or corrugated tube. All right. Again, cable trays, obviously no brainer. You can again run MC and cable trays. Again, we're talking. Oh, that's equipment grounds. So that doesn't matter. We're not talking about that. That's a different topic on another day. A different topic on another day. Let's get back to finish this out. Okay, so that's your equipment grounds. Here's your insulation. Where insulated, it says 1,000 volts or less. It says insulated control and semiconductors of 18 and 16 shall be the type listed in table 402.3. So you got different types of insulated materials with a maximum operating temperature of not less than 90 degrees C and as permitted in 724.49, ungrounded, grounded, and equipment grounded conductors of 16 and larger shall be the type listed in 310.41 or the type identified for use with type MC cable. Okay. So 16 and larger, if you look at 310.14, that gives you the different types of insulating types like THHN, X, and all that. So that's 310.4. It used to be 310.104, but in the last two cycles, it's now 310.4. Okay. Now, over 1,000 volts, same thing. It just says insulated conductors shall be the type listed in 310.42 and 315.10a. Obviously, applications over 1,000 volt. Okay. The sheathing. Metal covering shall be one of the following. It shall be either smooth metallic sheathing, corrugated metallic sheathing, or interlocked metal tape armor. I told you that at the beginning. 3 different types. It says the metallic sheathing shall be continuous and close fitting. Okay. A non-metallic sheathing or armor shall be used on single conductor type MC. Okay. So single conductor type MC is a non-magnetic type, like an aluminum. It says supplemental protection of the outer covering of corrosion resistant material shall be permitted and shall be required where protection is needed. That is the PVC jacketing material that is permitted to be extruded over the sheath, over the metal sheathing. It says the sheathing shall not be used as a current carrying conductor. Should be a no-brainer, but again, you'd be surprised. All right. Hazardous location, it says we're required to be marked MCHL. You heard me talk about that earlier. If you have MC and it's going to be used in a hazardous classified location, then it typically would be an MCHL marking or designation. It says if it is such, it says the cable shall be listed and shall have a gas/vapor tight continuous corrugated metal sheathing. So that is why I told you earlier that most hazardous locations, they're going to want it to be a corrugated type of MC rather than an interlocked. Okay. And it says it has an overall jacket of suitable polymeric material and a separate equipment grounding conductor. So in the construction of a MCHL, it's very important to understand that it has to have a polymeric material. Now, for all of those haters out there that say, wait a minute, I can't use, and again, Code Panel 17 members, listen up. If you say that I can't use PVC jacketed MC in a swimming pool application, then I'm going to tell you, wait a minute. It's PVC material, polymeric material has a very high resistance to corrosion. Get over it. It's okay. We don't have any historical effects that causes problems. And we provided that data to the code panel. I believe the way the words now is we get around that because I believe it is rated for such. But again, there are still some people out there that don't understand. Okay. Let me write that down so I don't forget there, Ryan. Appreciate all of you come. Do me a favor, check out Fast Tracks Tube. Also, we have another channel on YouTube called Coffee Hour with Paul. Go hunt it down and subscribe. Get us to a certain place where we can start putting more videos there as well. Again, we appreciate all the support on all of our channels. Hopefully you got something out of the day. And if you didn't, it sucks to be you. But if you did, you're welcome. Till next time, folks, stay safe. God bless.